Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Mihir Sheth and I think we've heard a lot of great fantastic talks this evening. So I just want to let all of this sink in and take a few deep breaths with me, alright? Breathe in, breathe out. Just one more. Breathe out. Great, thank you. So how many people here know what's happening in our body when we breathe air in and out? I see a few hands up. Okay. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, when we breathe air in, oxygen travels from the outside through our nose and through our windpipe into our lungs. Now, in our lungs, the windpipe then branches off into smaller and smaller branches, sort of like this broccoli, until it ends up in small, tiny sacs called alveoli, which are kind of like the florets right on top. The alveoli are surrounded by blood vessels, which are bringing carbon dioxide from the entire body to your lungs. And when they do that, they sort of have an exchange within the alveoli, where the red blood cells in the blood give up the carbon dioxide to the alveoli, and in exchange, they get filled with oxygen that we've just breathed in. The blood then transports this oxygen to all the tissues and organs in the body so that they can be used for, the business as usual activities. In the meantime, the carbon dioxide that your lungs are now full of just gets exhaled. However, not everyone's lungs work that way, unfortunately. 1 in 5 people in the UK suffer from long-term respiratory diseases like COPD, pulmonary fibrosis, lung cancer, and nowadays long COVID as well. And their lungs sort of look like this piece of broccoli, where the alveoli are often scarred and damaged, and this reduces the amount of oxygen that they are able to transfer to the blood. Therefore, now your entire body has less oxygen to work with. Patients suffering from these respiratory diseases like pulmonary fibrosis, which is the disease I work with, often find it difficult to breathe and find themselves gasping for breath, even when they're doing short activities like walking to the grocery store to pick up groceries, or for some severe patients, just walking around the home. And unfortunately, there is really no good cure or treatment for respiratory diseases right now. The best thing we can do is manage respiratory diseases, and for a lot of patients, that involves carrying a very unwieldy oxygen cylinder around to breathe pure oxygen through mask or nasal cannula. As you can see, this is not a very easy device to lug around, and just imagine if you have respiratory issues and are getting tired really quickly, and it's not pleasant. With respiratory diseases, there is a huge amount of inequity in who gets it and how they're affected. People from lower socioeconomic groups are 2 times more likely to get respiratory diseases and 7 times more likely to die. In the UK, it is the 3rd highest killer after cardiovascular diseases and cancers. We spend about £11 billion every year treating patients with respiratory diseases. We only spend less than 5% of all the total medical research funding in trying to understand and find solutions for respiratory diseases. That just baffles me. But this is where I come in. I am extremely passionate about reducing inequalities in healthcare innovation. I have worked in medical device development in US, Kenya, Senegal, India, and now in the UK. And the statistic that drives me is the fact that 80% of medical devices are designed for 10% of the world's population. Additionally, when medical devices are designed, most stakeholders are not consulted in the process, which leads to extremely unfit for use medical devices. Especially patients are very, very rarely consulted. So when I had the opportunity to work with Professor Eleanor Stride and Professor Ashok Handa to work on solutions to improve oxygen delivery in patients with chronic respiratory diseases, I jumped on it. You just heard from my fantastic colleague, Sarah, about microbubbles. So we use something similar. We still use bubbles, just slightly smaller. What we end up using are nano bubbles, but what are bubbles? They're kind of like this, right? Just a shell with a gas core inside. Except our nanobubbles are about 10,000 times smaller than these bubbles you see. The shell is made from food ingredients, actually. And inside, instead of air, we fill them with oxygen. We've been able to formulate these nanobubbles in a way that it can be drunk as a drink. From our preliminary experiments, we've seen that this drink actually improves oxygen delivery to tissues, which is extremely, extremely exciting. How many of the people in this room are wondering how that happens? Yeah, me too. And this is the exciting thing about research. I know the question I want to answer, which is, do oxygen nanobubbles improve oxygen delivery to tissues? And I know the answer, yes. And I get to figure out how. And I'm doing this by running 2 clinical studies right now. The first study is with patients with pulmonary fibrosis. We are giving them the drink as well as a placebo drink and seeing how far they walk in a fixed amount of time. By doing this study, we hope to answer 2 basic questions. One is that is oxygen delivered to the muscles of patients with pulmonary fibrosis in this manner? And 2, does it have any clinical benefit? I think those are both extremely important questions we need to ask, and it only makes sense to continue with this research if we get good results from this. The second study, on the other hand, is trying to understand how do these nanobubbles work. So we are working with healthy volunteers and have a series of tests and experiments lined up with them to better understand how these oxygen nanobubbles are being transported, are bypassing the lungs completely, being transported from the stomach into the bloodstream and finally to the tissues, which I think are all extremely exciting questions, and I'm extremely interested to know what the answer is. Finally, engineering solutions to complex problems is a very, very multidisciplinary process. This would not have been possible without great multidisciplinary team we have. We have engineers, clinicians, nurses, physiotherapists, even sports physiologists who've been involved in this research. But most importantly, we are bringing in the patient voice so that we can ensure that when we make a drink that's simple and accessible, that is what they need and that is what they want. In the future, I hope that patients who do have pulmonary fibrosis or any respiratory disease for that matter can just pick up a bottle of drink, shake it, get some nanobubbles in there and drink, and then continue and go shopping. Thank you.